Welcome to another episode of Technically Speaking. Today, we're going to talk about a subject and a topic that's near and dear to my heart because it's essential to what I do in my day job. Whether anybody knows it or not, Mark, you're not only the spokesmodel for Technically Speaking, but you're also the person who runs and drives EVOTEK Labs, which has a methodology and other things. Well, Mark, I'd love it if you would share some of your thoughts on how do we engage with, how do we review emerging technology?
You hit the nail on the head. Yeah, emerging tech is such a tricky, squishy, non-deterministic world. That makes it very difficult. That's why only the brave and fearless endeavor into that kingdom. What if we dug into the difference between emerging tech and mainstream tech?
I think it's a great idea, but wait, there's a difference between emerging tech and mainstream tech. Isn't it all just tech?
There definitely are some key differences here. The best description I've seen that kind of sums up those differences was in a book, 1991. Let's see. So that would have been George Bush, the senior, was president then at the time. Yeah, he wrote a book, Jeffrey Moore did, called Crossing the Chasm. And it talked about 5 distinct phases companies go through in terms of the customers that they're able to sell to. So the very, very early stages, they're able to sell to innovators and early adopters, and eventually it starts sunsetting to where only the laggards are the new consumers of that. In between that early adopter and early majority, there's a chasm, kind of a Grand Canyon. And a startup has to kind of Evel Knievel their way over that canyon in order to get to that, the big bucks sitting with the early majority. Most don't make it. Most of them crash and burn. As such, inside EVOTEK Labs, we've got a fairly crisp definition of what that chasm is. To the left of it are startups with less than $1 billion annual revenue, less than $3 billion of valuation. They haven't IPO'd, and they're typically less than 8 years old. Those are what we define as emerging tech. When we take a look at the differences, though, between those on kind of the emerging tech, the startup, the innovation side of the chasm, and those that have gone mainstream, we see 4 main differences. The first one is in the problems that they're solving. Mainstream technology tends to solve defined problems. The approach that you take for mainstream technologies tends to be quite uniform. You're trying to do the same approach as everyone in the market. You're just trying to do it better. However, with a startup, the approach you're taking is deviant. I don't mean in a you're going to jail kind of way, but it has to deviate from what's already on the market. Otherwise, why start a company?
Everybody that has something that's the way you do it identified a problem when they were a startup, and it was so successful that they just became the way you did it.
Well, no, you nailed it. If you take a look at a startup, the solutions that they have tend to be very fluid. Most of them don't have a marketing group, which, by the way, if you've seen our episodes on bad pitch, that's kind of why we see some rather ugly pitches come in, because a lot of these companies haven't invested in a marketing department yet. Whereas you look at a mature company, very polished, national conventions, write-ups in the magazines, interviews on CNN, right? They're very, very mature.